isn't it interesting how we have these two phrases in the English language where we either have birds of a feather flock together or we have opposites attract?
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't ever seem like we have that happy medium in between. So sometimes we see our parents and they're the ones that are rock climbing when they're still 65, or they have the Pinterest perfect home, and we're not like them. And sometimes that's no matter how hard we try. And sometimes that's okay, but sometimes it's not okay.
Right.
Or we see our parents were hoarders and we grew up in chaos, and we are now the absolute picture perfect of perfection. Or sometimes we're exactly the same. Hey, you know what? I saw my parents rock climbing when they were 65 and I want to be that person. And so I'm doing everything that I can to make sure I am that person. Or my parents had a Pinterest perfect house and I am working as hard as I can to be like them. However we are, we tend to either like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we change our story if we don't? Sometimes when we're not okay with who we are, we tend to look back at our parents because they were the ones that taught us, and our subconscious kind of reverts back to how they were. But what if we're not okay with that? How do we change our story?
So how do you change your story? How do you change the thing that's going on in your head for years and years and years, that, you know, your parents did something and their parents before them and their parents before them, and that's the way you're destined to be, right? So how do you change it? How do you change the whole script if you want to go the opposite? We're going to show you that. We're going to show you how to take failure and use it to turn it into success.
Absolutely.
So for me, I actually just did something recently that took changing my own story in my own head. It wasn't an extreme story by any stretch, but it was something that I had to change. And throughout my life, I've achieved a lot of little things and a few major things. And along the way, it's required changing of my story, whether I knew it at the time or not. Some of those smaller things were, you know, little victories, like I lost a few pounds, or
Yay!
I got promoted at my job, or something like that. Other bigger victories, when I was a teenager, I got second place overall in the Junior Olympics. And then
that's awesome. Bragging
rights. It was pretty cool for a minute. And then recently, like I said, I just achieved another goal that I'd been working for 4 years to achieve, and I wasn't quite sure if I was actually going to make it. But really, what I did for those things were all the same. First of all, I sought out people who already had been there, done that sort of thing. So I went and found mentors, whether it was in business or school or sports, and coaches, whoever. And I said, teach me, show me, help me. And then I also was able to look myself in the mirror when I didn't get there the first time. So this most recent achievement that I had tried out twice before. So it took me 3 tryouts over 4 years to get this thing. And both the previous 2 tryouts, I had to look myself in the mirror and go, okay, you didn't make it. Mm-hmm. Why? And I had the option at that point to blame the people who were doing the selecting, because it was a team I was trying to be on. So maybe they didn't select me because it was their problem. Or I could look in the mirror and say, this is a me problem. They're not selecting me because I am not whatever, and figure out what that whatever is and then change that. So I did that. And then the resources I sought out resources, I sought out books, I sought out podcasts, I sought out whatever, so that I could educate myself, because I thought, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm going to do it. Awesome. And really, truly, to change your story, the only way to change it is you have to change it. You can't. Coaches are amazing. They can guide you. They can mentor you. Mentors are great for that too. Friends, people who've been there, done that, they can all show you how they have done it, but they can't physically do the work for you. You have to get the resources. You have to read the books. You have to educate yourself. You have to understand whatever it is you need to understand. And then once you've educated yourself, then you can put it into practice. Mm-hmm. And then you can start to change that story. But the story for me, for a long time, I thought, well, they don't want me because I'm not a 20-year-old male. And that was the thing. And that was a story in my head, because they did select me and I'm not a 20-year-old male. So obviously, that was the story that was playing in my head. That was one of many. And then I just had to kind of figure that out. So as you're going through trials, and maybe it's just, a little thing like you're trying to, create a cleaner environment in your home, and you're trying to make sure that everybody puts their backpacks away after school. Or something simple like that. You have to figure out a system. You have to find people who've done it before. Maybe it's a mom down the street who's super effective with that, and her house is always immaculate.
Absolutely.
So you go into her house and you sit down at her kitchen counter and you say, hey, share your wisdom. Tell me how you make it happen. How do you get your kids to hang up their backpacks every day? You reach out and maybe you read some mommy blogs about how to keep your kids organized at school, or maybe there's always resources, and it doesn't have to be a major life shift. It just has to be, but there's always a way to do it. So when you are failing at whatever it is, because you either win or you lose, right? Ricky Bobby, first or last. So that's my world. You're first, you're last. So if you're last and you want to be first, you got to change the story. You got to do something different. So my suggestion and my methods to your madness are to figure out why you're failing. First of all, look yourself in the mirror and figure it out. And then seek out some other people or resources or someone that can guide you. Because if someone else has done that, been there, they can show you a better way. Maybe it's a business partner that has already built, you're an entrepreneur, you're growing your business. Maybe you go find another entrepreneur who's always already done it. They're already very successful, and they can say, hey, here's how you market, here's how you do this, here's how you do that.
Yeah.
And then you need to teach yourself. You need to absorb as much as you possibly can. You can't just stand there and go, okay, coach me. I am ready. Bestow your knowledge upon me.
Bring it on.
You got to do the work. You got to get down in there and you got to do the work. But really, once you've made that decision and you've taken those steps, the success will come. It just will. So the good news is that you have resources around you. You just have to go find them. And there are plenty of people that have been there before you that you can ask.
Yes, so. Absolutely. And one key part of being able to change your story is knowing where you came from.
Yes,
you have to know the history of where you're coming from. So pay attention. I just realized the other day, I was walking through the grocery store with my son, and I saw pinwheels. Do you know what those are? There's these nasty, horrible, awful things. They're like these marshmallow treats in the store.
Yeah,
they have like the cookie on the bottom, and then the marshmallow fluff on top, and then they're coated with this waxy chocolate. And for whatever reason, this was the favorite gift to give my dad growing up. We got it for him for Christmas, for his birthday, for special occasions. And right next to the pinwheels were the Lorna Doones.
I don't know what those are
And they're like these little shortbread cookies, and we used to dip them into chocolate pudding.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And I was like, oh my word, I haven't seen pinwheels or Lorna Doones for at least 20 years. And so I took this big trip down memory lane, and I took a picture of both of these treats, and I sent them to my family. And I was like, look what I found in the aisle, and all these memories, and all my family was responding, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my gosh. Our story around sugar, around treats. And I didn't recognize that that's my history, that that's where I am coming from, that all the special occasions were punctuated with sugar and with treats. We moved a lot, and we didn't have, toys, and we didn't go skiing all the time. We didn't have stuff to do. And so the way that we celebrated was through treats. And
you're not
sugar.
alone. That's a lot of people.
No, that's just it. And so I looked at that, and I just one of those facepalm moments of, oh my word, that's where I'm coming from. That's my history. And so in order for me to change my story, I needed to recognize, well, no wonder I always think it's okay to celebrate with treats. That it's okay, we've earned it. It's okay because it's fun. It's okay because
you've earned it. That's the key phrase right there.
My story.
Yeah.
And so in order to change your story, you need to know where you're coming from. So were your parents hoarders? Do you recognize hoarding tendencies in yourself? I had a good friend that recognized it in herself, and her way of coping with it was, I'll just buy a bigger house. But she kind of recognized that that's where she was coming from, but she didn't recognize it strongly enough to make a big shift and a big change. I'll just buy a bigger house and I'll hire a housekeeper. And so she tried to start making excuses and tried to start changing, but it wasn't enough because she didn't really have a firm grasp on the cost of where she was coming from, of her history, of the effects on her family, of the traditions that she's passing down, how she speaks about stuff, how she brings stuff into her house. And the same can go for the opposite end of the spectrum too. You know, if stuff is evil and you grow up with that, just recognize where you're coming from, and then when we can identify what we don't want to be, then we can say, oh, okay.
Right.
Then, like you said, then we start looking for who we do want to be.
Right.
Because it's not enough to just say, see that right there? I don't want to be that.
Right.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. I don't
want
to be
that.
I don't want to be that.
What are you?
Exactly. Because all we're doing is we're standing there and we're backing up as far as we can away from what we don't want to be, but our eyes are still centered on what we don't want to be. So any forward progress is towards what we don't want to be.
Or what we haven't gotten. Or what we haven't achieved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we can shift and move those blinders and look for those people, those mentors, those resources, anything, say, oh, okay, that's who I want to be. That's how I want to be. That's how I want my body to look. That's how I want my house to look. Then we shift and we put blinders on to say, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. And then any forward progress, even if we trip and fall and fail, we're going to still be okay, because when we stand up, we're still going to be focused towards what we want to be instead of, I don't want to be that.
Don't you find too, when you're starting that process and you figured out where you do want to be, and you start reading the books or listening to the podcasts or talking to the mentors, all of a sudden you start to just really hyper focus on that, and you almost forget about the thing that you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
It just, it's no longer part of your thought process, because, and especially with as easy as podcasts, Audible books, you know, everything like that, you can listen to 24/7 good information that's going to keep you on the right track, so that it's always on the front of your mind, literally, because you've been listening to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful, because the more you get your mind focused on where you do want to be, where you want your story to be, you're not even going to remember the story you used to have.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We've all heard that saying that you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So change who those people are. So find those mentors, find those resources, find the people that are going to support you in that change, that they're not going to feel uncomfortable about you changing. They're going to cheer you on when they say, oh my gosh, you know, you just rearranged your living room. That's amazing. Instead of going, so what, we're not good enough for you anymore? You know, we've all had both of those experiences, and it always feels a whole lot better to get that validation and that oomph, you know, from somebody who's willing to support you through that change, rather than being torn down. You know, what you're saying that I'm a slob. You know, what does that say about me if you don't want to be like me anymore? You know, and they get all offended and hurt. But
and that's a whole topic for a whole other day. But the moral of the story is figure out where you want to be. And then figure out how you're going to get there by finding the people, the books, the podcasts, the information that you need to get you there.
Yes.
And then focus on it 100%. And the good news is you have 2 people who really like to offer good information, who have lots of podcasts for you. I have a blog for you. She's got amazing websites and all kinds of amazing live videos, like everyday live videos. with lots of good information. So surround yourself with people and information coming in that's going to benefit you, and you'll get a lot farther.
Absolutely. So that's your homework for this week. We can't tell you exactly what to do because we don't know your story. We don't know where you're coming from, and we don't know where you want to go without you telling us. But what we can tell you is surround yourself with those things that are going to lead you to the success that you have decided that's where you want to go. So that homework is figure out where you want to go, who you want to be, what you want to look like, how you want your home to look like, and then start collecting mentors, role models, and resources and information to get you there. So that means you have to act. You actually have to go do it. You have to go find the podcast. You have to go find the books. You have to go find the people in your circle of friends that are the type of people that you want to hang out with, that you want to surround yourself with, that you want to be like. So take action. I don't care how scary it is. I don't care if you fail. The fact that you're taking action is going to serve you so much better than nestling into history
and wishing and hoping that things would
the story.
Change.
Exactly.
Yep.
So take action and let us know how it goes. You can find us on the Hom Bod podcast on Facebook, but mention and comment here on the podcast, on YouTube, on wherever you listen to us. Make sure that you leave us a review so that we know if we're doing well or not.
And share it with some friends.
Share it. Because those friends that you share it with are the people that you want to surround yourself with. Okay. We'll see you next week.